So, this is something that happened to me and my mom a while back, and honestly, it's one of those things that still doesn't sit right, no matter how many times I replay it in my head. It was a long drive, one of those stretches of Australian highway where it feels like the world has gone quiet. Nothing but the hum of the engine, the faint rattle of the air conditioning, and the blackness pressing in from both sides of the car. That night, it was just me behind the wheel and my mom in the passenger seat. We'd been visiting family up north and were heading back down toward Melbourne. It must have been close to 11 when it happened. The sky was moonless, thick clouds blotting out even the faintest starlight, so the only illumination came from our headlights. We were chatting quietly, nothing serious, when my mum suddenly grabbed my arm and hissed, "Slow down." I jerked my eyes back to the road, and that's when I saw it. A child, right there, crossing the road in front of us. My heart jumped into my throat, and I slammed the brakes so hard the seatbelt dug into my chest. The tires squealed, the car lurched forward, and for a terrifying second, I thought we were going to hit him. But somehow, we didn't. We stopped just a few meters short. I sat there, hands locked on the wheel, staring at this tiny figure illuminated in the beams of my headlights. He couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. Skinny frame, bare legs, a shirt that looked old and too big for him. His hair was dark, cut uneven, like someone had done it with kitchen scissors. He walked across the road slowly, without even looking at us, his arms stiff at his sides. And there was something so wrong about it. Not just the fact that a child was out there in the middle of nowhere at almost midnight, but the way he moved, steady, mechanical, like he wasn't fully aware of his surroundings. "Get out, help him," my mom whispered, but the words caught in her throat. She didn't sound like she meant them. I couldn't move. My instinct screamed at me to stay inside the car. The boy reached the edge of the road, stepped into the grass, and then he was gone. Not like he ran off. We would have seen that. He just disappeared into the dark, swallowed by it. My mom and I sat in silence for a long moment before I finally reached for my phone and called the police. My voice was shaking when I explained what happened. The dispatcher told us to wait where we were, that a patrol would check it out. About 15 minutes later, headlights appeared in the distance, and a police cruiser pulled up behind us. 2 officers stepped out, calm and professional. We explained everything: the boy, the near miss, the way he vanished into the scrub. They nodded, listened, and then one of them smiled, this reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and said, "It's all good." A child was already located and taken home safely. The relief that washed over me was immediate. I let out this shaky laugh, like I'd been holding my breath for 20 minutes. My mom even said, "Oh, thank God." The officers told us to drive safe, then got back in their car. We pulled away slowly, both of us still shaken but comforted by the idea that the boy was okay. Except, the next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Something didn't sit right. Why hadn't they asked for a description? Why hadn't they wanted to know which direction the boy had gone? It didn't add up. So I called the station directly, wanting to double check. And that's when everything twisted. The officer on the line sounded confused. He told me no child had been found on Hume Road, or anywhere in that area. No calls had been logged, no searches made, nothing. When I pressed him and mentioned that 2 officers had spoken to us, he got quiet. Then he said there were no patrol cars dispatched to that stretch of highway that night. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked over at my mom, who had been listening, and I could tell from her expression that she'd heard every word. I didn't know what to say. I just hung up. That's when I remembered the dash cam. I plugged the SD card into my laptop, and we both sat there watching the footage together. And sure enough, there he was, clear as day, right in the middle of the road. A child. Small, fragile, illuminated in our headlights. But the longer we stared at the footage, the worse it got. Because while my memory told me he had dark, uneven hair and pale skin, the video made him look different. His features were blurred, as if the camera lens couldn't settle on his face. His arms looked stiff, too stiff, and his legs didn't bend quite right as he walked. At one point, just before he reached the grass, he seemed to tilt his head toward the car. And for a single frame, frozen when I paused the video, I swear, there was the faintest smile stretching across his face. I closed the laptop. My mom was pale, whispering under her breath. That wasn't a child. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. We were hours away from the nearest town. There were no houses, no farms, no driveways along that stretch of highway. There was no way a child could have gotten there on foot. And even if he somehow had, someone, somewhere, would have reported him missing. But there were no missing child reports. It was like he didn't exist. And yet, we both saw him. We watched as he disappeared into the dark. This is one of those stories I still don't like talking about at night. It's not just because of what I saw, but because of what I heard afterward from other people in town. It's the kind of thing that makes you second-guess your memory, even when you know you didn't imagine it. It started on a Friday night, past midnight, when me and a couple friends were heading back from a late movie. There were 4 of us in the car, 2 buddies in the back, and my friend Claire in the passenger seat. The streets were quiet, the way they get in small towns when everyone's either asleep or drinking at the one bar that stays open past 11. We were crossing the bridge over the river when Claire gasped and pointed. At first, I thought it was a deer, or maybe a drunk, who'd wandered too close to the water. But then the headlights caught her. A woman. She was crawling up the embankment, soaked head to toe, her hair plastered to her face. Her arms shook as she dragged herself, and when she got to the road, she collapsed flat on the asphalt, clawing at it like she was trying to hold on to something invisible. I slammed the brakes. Everyone in the car went dead silent except for one of my friends in the back who whispered, "What the hell?" The woman lifted her head just enough for me to see her eyes, wide and red from crying. She started sobbing, these choking sounds that made my skin crawl. Her clothes clung to her, an old blouse, a skirt ripped at the hem, and she was shivering so violently I thought she might break apart right there. Claire reached for the door handle, but I grabbed her arm. Something in me screamed not to let her out. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way the woman's fingernails scraped against the pavement, like she was trying to dig into it. I called 911, stammering as I told them there was a woman on the road, soaked and possibly injured. The dispatcher said officers were already nearby and would be there in minutes. And they were. 2 cruisers rolled up faster than I expected. The woman was still in the middle of the road, crying, her voice breaking into these high, panicked sounds. But the second the officers stepped out, she went quiet, completely silent. They spoke to her in low voices, but she didn't answer. She just sat there, water dripping from her hair, staring at the ground. Finally, one of them lifted her gently to her feet, guiding her toward the car. She went with him, limp, like she wasn't even really there anymore. We gave statements, then watched them drive her off toward the hospital. Claire couldn't stop muttering. She looked right at me. She looked right at me. I didn't sleep that night. I kept picturing her on the road, her hands scraping at the asphalt like she was drowning on dry land. The next morning, I asked around. A couple of people had heard about her, something about a woman pulled from the river, taken to the ER. It was small-town gossip, nothing official, but it matched what we'd seen. I figured she'd get treatment. Maybe someone would come pick her up, and that'd be the end of it. But it wasn't. A few days later, I was getting gas when an older guy I kind of knew, retired, lived a few streets over, asked me if I'd heard about the river woman. I froze, then admitted, yeah, I'd seen her. He nodded grimly and said she'd been at his neighbor's house 2 nights ago. He swore he woke up to his neighbor pounding on his door in the middle of the night, panicked because a woman had been standing in his living room, dripping wet, staring out the window. No broken glass, no forced entry, just standing there. I laughed it off at the time, but something in his face told me he wasn't joking. Then more stories started to spread. A teenage girl said she'd seen the woman at her window, leaning so close to the glass that her breath fogged it up. A couple claimed they found her wandering in their backyard, her clothes still soaked, her fingers tracing along the fence as if she was lost. Every story had the same detail. She didn't speak. Not a word. Just blank eyes and wet clothes. When I finally worked up the nerve to check the hospital records, there was nothing. No admission of a drowned woman. No Jane Doe. The police report we'd filed, gone. It was like the night never happened. But I know what I saw. My friends know it too. And the dash cam. Yeah, the footage is still there. It shows her dragging herself from the riverbank, crawling onto the road, her hair clinging to her face. You can hear Claire's gasp, my voice cursing as I hit the brakes. And if you pause at the right second, when she lifts her head, you can see her eyes, 2 wide, desperate circles staring straight at the camera. I don't show the footage to anyone, because if you look too long, it almost feels like she notices you, and I can't shake the thought that maybe she isn't lost at all. Maybe she's still trying to find something, or someone.